Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AI Educator, a series from EDSAFE AI, where we ask AI enthusiasts 3 questions related to AI implementation in education in rapid-fire format. I'm your host, Andrea Claver, Project Manager of EdSafe, and today we are joined by Jeff Carlson, Head of Education Strategy and Advocacy at Clever. Thanks for joining us today, Jeff. Are you
Happy to be
ready?
here.
Wonderful. Okay, let's kick things off with question number one. What's the one thing that excites you most about the future of AI in education?
The thing that's most exciting to me about the future of AI within education is hopefully our ability to drive education and the experience that kids have more and more toward a world of questions than a world of answers. Where if the tools are going to be able to provide answers to a lot of basic things, um, we want kids who can ask the right questions. Not just of the tools they're using, but of themselves, how they see themselves in the world, of their peers. We'd love to get back to a world where kids were talking to kids more and not to screens, and not to something else. And so I'm excited about the ability for AI to support a learning environment that's focused on asking the right questions of kids, but also helping them learn to be questioners themselves.
That's a really great point you made, and I think you really touched on something people are concerned about, which is the critical thinking aspect of education going away with the implementation of AI. But if students are questioning and they're kind of approaching their learning in that way, then they are hitting that critical thinking. It shows that they're taking the topics and really processing it deeply and coming back with questions to explore more beyond what their teacher just told them.
Yes, that's right. I think, I remember when I was in school, if I got stuck on a fact, it may take me 5 to 7 minutes to find where in my textbook that chapter was, where on the page within that chapter, make sure that I was getting it right. And it takes you completely out of the critical thinking. It takes you completely out of the conversation you were having with somebody else. Whereas if you're able to just have the facts there, hopefully verifiable, there's always going to be work to do to make sure that the answers that we're getting from these tools are correct and researched the right way. And that's I think a lot on the vendors and the community that's doing the work there. But giving teachers and kids time back to talk to each other, to ask the next question, to go deeper instead of being stuck on the same exact content over and over and over again until every single person has that piece of content. We now can have supports to allow for more interaction and questioning and less checking to make sure we've all got the content right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think you really clarified, again, a lot of what people are afraid of will go away with this, and that's definitely not the case. So that's a great segue into our next question, which is what's the biggest misconception you hear about the safe and responsible use of AI in schools?
I think the biggest misconception right now, both within the public and probably within schools, is that schools should or can or have been treating AI the same way as an individual consumer has. So I think the more we can help schools show that the way to use AI in schools is not downloading a random free application or immediately trying out the next new model or giving away, like some of us as consumers, probably the thing we may be using it most for is like writing emails or writing a first draft. And that's actually not the tools we see being dominant in schools, to the extent that there are any dominant tools. It is really taking care of a lot of the back end stuff that teachers and administrators have to deal with. It's about helping data inform instruction, not putting a tool in front of a kid and having them not do things that they used to do in the same way. It's actually trying to find the most effective things we can do. And so I actually hope that the consumer world can start to look more like what we want to see the education world with AI, whereas we find the right tools for the right purpose. We get a data privacy agreement. We understand how that tool is using our data. And we have people around us that are making sure that that data is being used well. So I'd like to live in a world where AI use looks more like the ideal use we want to have in schools. Of course, there's plenty of places that aren't getting it right, and there's plenty of places that need more support. But I think what we want to see in schools is the right tools with the right privacy protections being used at the right time, and not something that's taking over everything and having 70 agents running in the background trying to do busy work that may not even need to be done.
Absolutely. And I think a big piece of that, since we do see so many good use cases out there, is how can we create opportunities for those places to share their stories? So then maybe in other areas or districts, schools, departments, whatever that might be, where they're not quite hitting the nail on the head, they can take some of those insights and apply them. But also, so the consumer world can see how great AI rollout has been in certain areas of education and kind of apply those there as well.
Yeah, that's right. I always think about the school district I grew up in, where my dad was a principal. He was later a superintendent, and I had 30 kids in my graduating class. And the tech director was my dad for a while, and then it was our neighbor down the street who also knew something about computers. And so I think, how do we help schools like that, um, and schools that don't have the most sophisticated tech teams, get it right sooner rather than later, and not have to do a long period of trial and error where teachers, kids, parents get frustrated. But how do we lift up those things that are happening right now, and get those to scale quickly? And how do we learn the lessons from folks who may not have had the outcome that they wanted and keep people from having to make those same mistakes? How do we spread information on both of those sides so that everybody can level up and not do the things when it comes to AI and education that lots of folks have already decided isn't the right way to do it? We shouldn't make everybody have to learn this lesson on their own.
Absolutely. I love it. So we're going to round it out here with one of our favorite questions here at EdSafe. What's a message you would share with a teacher or a school leader who's feeling overwhelmed by the rapid pace of AI development?
The first thing I'd say to somebody is, you're not alone. The folks closest to this technology, the folks who built this technology, are feeling the same way. And some of them are publicly saying that there's reason for pause, there's reason to question how the path is, there's reason for regulation in some ways. And so if you're in a school district that doesn't have a strong set of AI policies that you know how to pull up and understand, you're also not alone. And it's happened very quick. And so I think there's a debate right now in kind of the super AI heavy world of, when do you deploy the next model? When do you deploy the next thing? And if it's just going to be better in 6 months, should we actually train people on things now? Should we integrate those things now? And I think in education, I want to be more careful than what I hear some of the folks closest to some of these AI tools and the large language models. I do think there's more reason for caution before we put something in front of a kid. But I also don't want to wait and have the perfect be the enemy of the good. And that if there are ways that you can figure out something that is helpful to you, if you know that something has been helpful to somebody else and that it's got the right privacy surrounds around it, and you've learned from other folks what the purpose of that tool is and how it's used, try it out. Try it out yourself before you put it in front of students. Get to know the companies that you're looking at. Where's their funding coming from? How are they thinking about things? What does their growth model look like? Be your own kind of, just like you would do when you were buying something for yourself or trying something for yourself. When you're thinking about it for your school, put that same hat on. But don't wait to do something later because you think there's a promise of something better later. And also don't wait and do nothing, because kids that were in schools right now are going to need to learn how to take these tools on. We need to know how we got there, and we should all help everybody be on the journey getting there together, and not just having kids wake up 10 years from now in a completely different world that we didn't prepare them for.
I love just the overall theme in this conversation of community, students talking to students about their learning while using AI as a tool, sharing those best practices, and when things don't go right, sharing with one another, hey, I had this experience here, I had this experience there, and knowing that we're kind of all in this together, has been a theme throughout this conversation. So thank you so much for bringing those insights to the table.
Absolutely. Education is about community. And so the more we can do this together and not in isolated little silos with our own chatbot, which should not be called a chatbot. We shouldn't have fancy, cute names for them. They're synthetic guessing machines that are going to help us a lot, but they are not going to replace our conversations with humans, with friends, with family, and the most important relationship at all when it comes to education, which is between a teacher and a student.
Absolutely. And there you have it, listeners. Three quick questions and a wealth of information to mull over. Join us next time where we'll put another AI enthusiast in the hot seat.